Hello, and welcome to PolyAmAreWe, the podcast which looks at polyamory and ethical non-monogamy from a male and emotional perspective. In this episode, we have Briane with us.
Hi.
Hello, Briane. How are you today?
Great. Tired, but great.
Oh, what has you tired?
I'm not sleeping well.
Oh, why? What's going on? Boys on the mind?
Boys
Girls on the mind?
Boys
Couples
on the mind.
You've got a lot of stories to share today, don't you?
My brother's going to listen to this and no, I don't.
Ooh. Yeah, I think it's always the weirdest when family tunes in. I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, they don't have to know those things.
Well,
Maybe they just will. I'll give them probably snippets. Just give me snippets.
I want the support of my friends and family, but then also there are parts of my life that I don't want them knowing about.
Yeah.
Yeah. The darker sides, the more dominant sides.
Yeah, I was going to say knowing you, it would be that, wouldn't it?
It would be.
It would be the hardware part of it.
So let's kick off with a bit about you. Let's let you tell the story. How do we know each other?
Oh,
Briane?
yeah. See, I was thinking about that. I knew you were going to ask me that. It was on a dating app, wasn't it?
It was on a dating app. I think it was on Bumble or Hinge, wasn't it?
I can't remember which one. I mean, sure.
One of them.
One of the three
apps. One of the
apps.
many dating apps.
Yeah, it could have been Tinder. No, it wasn't
No,
Tinder.
it was not Tinder. I've never had any luck on Tinder.
Oh, really?
Ever.
I think you've told me that before.
Yeah.
I found that surprising.
But I think their whole algorithm is that they want guys to fork over cash.
Yeah.
Because guys on dating apps, what I've noticed the difference even between Nash and I is when I'm on a dating app, I'll be looking at it going hot, not hot. And it's just the way guys use dating apps.
Yeah.
Whereas Nash, on the other hand, will look at a guy's picture, scroll through, look at their star sign, see what their interests are, see if they're aligned in any way. If they don't align astronomically, she's like, no, not going. Although they could be hot as fuck.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually, knowing Nash.
Yeah, well, true.
That you would totally do that.
Yeah.
I look at pictures. I'm very superficial.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at pictures and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, he's cute.
He's
Blushing.
blushing.
A little blush.
You thought my picture was cute.
Yeah, you were right.
There we go.
Yeah, no, it was in a dating app, I'm pretty sure. And you had everything listed. I remember the open, ethical, non-monogamous was something that you wrote there.
My regular list is, how is it? Sensual dom.
You didn't know that.
Prime. Oh no, I'm.
Yeah, because I would have said yes.
I'm discussing the other app where it's just for.
I'm
more
sure I
kink
would
dating.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm.
No, so I always would any dating app I'm on, whether it's a more vanilla dating app or more king side dating app, would be tailored to that particular audience, I suppose. And then I get to know the person, and then we get into the talks about different facets of our lives and things we're into, and it flows.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure you didn't have that, because I think I would have probably been at that time quite scared to say something, or quite scared to initiate contact.
You were a lot more timid though when we first met, and we know each other must be nearly a year now.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I moved over here nearly exactly this time last year, and so it would have been. Well, maybe it was August or September when we...
No, because I usually don't do anything in August because it's too hot here to do anything in August. I don't go out in August. It must have been early summertime then.
So continue on the story of we.
Yeah. Yeah.
On this PolyAmAreWe Thursday.
Yeah, so we met on the dating app and we started talking, and I think I remember we went on a date. And you were very anxious. Not about anything that was going on with you and I. It was things that were going on with you and Nash. Or Nash at the time that you were anxious about. I don't really remember
I can't
details.
remember what was the ins and outs, but there was something going on between us. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And you were like, stop looking at your phone.
Well, it wasn't really stop looking. It was just you can kind of tell when someone's anxious.
Yeah.
And I knew it had nothing to do with me.
Because you're just so perfect.
No, because you told me.
Well, true, yeah.
You were very much kind of apologetic about it, and you were just yeah, I'm sorry, I'm really out of it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? We're human. It happens. And you were also explaining to me more or less, I don't think you went into detail, but you did kind of discuss what was going on. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You go back, chill, figure it out, and then we'll just hang out. And then I think after hanging out a couple times, we were just developed a really nice friendship of honesty and openness. And it was you could come to me for things to discuss, and I can go to you about things. And so kind of just developed into that.
I actually mirrored those exact words in a previous episode, and I was just saying how it's great in this lifestyle to be able to have friends of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Just even friendships, because there are many monogamous relationships out there where even friendships with a member of the opposite sex wouldn't be allowed, or would bring up feelings of jealousy or insecurity. And I find myself so lucky that I have, including you, but a few different female friends that I can confide in, that I can reach out to, that if things are going, if shit has hit the fan, I'm all like, I have people in my support network, and just as I'm there for them if they've issues with their partners or their husband or their boyfriend, or and it's such a,
well, I find it weird that male female friendships is so, it's not taboo, but it's kind of I was discussing this with a guy, because there was a guy I'm talking to, and I was just asking him about like how does he relate to girls outside of kind of the sexual nature of it, or even just, you know, relationship partnership of it, and he was just like, no, like usually if he's dating 3 girls but he finds that he has more interest in one, he'll kind of let go of the other 2.
And does he identify as ethical non-monogamous or polyamorous, or is he just playing the field until he's finding one? It's that it was we were discussing my thing of whenever I start dating, I was going to say, I identify as monogamous. I don't know if you can say that. I identify as monogamous. I identify with the status quo.
Wait. I mean, I'm hanging out with a couple of friends I have now that are polyamorous. Yeah. Because I was curious about it.
I really want to delve onto those stories.
Okay. Well, I was curious about just dating in general and just the scope of it. And so that's why I think I started being like, yeah, let me kind of see what happens with someone who's polyamorous, talk to them about it, be curious about it, non-judgmental about it. And I've learned a lot. And one of the things that I've learned is the importance that, though I know I want a monogamous relationship, the importance of being able to be in a relationship where my partner isn't threatened by me having male friends.
Yeah. I mean, that, like we just said, that is a huge issue. And like, I've even friends in monogamous relationships now, like some of my best friends, and they'd have no female friends, or his wife would have no male friends, because it's just one of those things. There's a sense of trust, I suppose, and not so much trust amongst the couple because they trust each other with their lives, their everything. It's the trust of others.
Yeah, but you can't control what other people do. You can just kind of control your reaction to it. So if you trust the person, you will trust that that person will react in a way that doesn't invite a third person, if it's not wanted, into this.
But then that's generally where the whole cheating thing can come into it, I suppose. If you know, it's the whole fear. I would guess that if you allow, quotation marks, a friend into the relationship structure, and then he and her, the friend, grow close, and then something happens on a night out after he's been with his partner for X amount of years. And these things can just snowball.
They can and they can't. I mean, this is something that, because I have something else prepared. I'm actually here to discuss something else.
Prepared. This is the most unprepared podcast you should ever be on. I'm the most unprepared person.
I am the most prepared person.
Oh, here we go. Yin yang.
I know, but it works out.
The paradoxical podcast.
Of people who are just so opposite. I remember because before I came, I sent notes to what I wanted to talk about. And I was like, yeah, maybe you can have questions. And you were like, questions? Question mark? Like, why?
Did you send me a message?
I 100% sent it
I know you did. No, but it's when I responded, I was like, well, what message?
Yeah, I'm like, scroll up there.
I am terrible at keeping up with things people send me, and I'm sorry. No,
it's okay. I'm like that, but it's fine. So that thing about like it's snowballing and then something else can happen, I have my thoughts about that.
Roll with it.
Well, I mean, if you're in a relationship and you've decided, because I think it's, you know, your choice on the style of relationship that you would like to have, and that you both are in agreement of this style, then it's the trust that they will that they will abide by what they've decided. And so if it snowballs, it's kind of like, well, there's a lack of communication between the partner, because it's like, you know, if you know that you're starting to develop feelings for this friend, why do you put yourself in a situation where it could snowball?
True, but yeah, and I suppose like the exact same can be said for polyamorous or ethical non-monogamous relationships. Whereas like I have that trust in my partners that, okay, even like I can speak close to home even with Nash. So when she goes out, if she sleeps with someone, he'll be wearing protection, or
you would trust that,
and trust that they're not inadvertently could put my health at risk, and I would trust my partners with that as well, and with a lot of my partners as well, where we would periodically get tested, just not so much to assure one another, but just to peace of mind, because there's a lot to be said for peace of mind. If someone's peace of mind is thrown in any way, it can totally mar any experience. It's more like there it is, I get it done every couple of months, so if you want to see it, great.
Well, that's respecting the other person as well. That's making sure that you're taking care of your partner as well as your other partners. I guess absolutely. It's just making sure that you show them you're respecting them by doing that. And I in a polyamorous relationship or in a dynamic, I find that very respectful and very much something that should be done.
Well, should be.
It should be. I mean, you're looking at the health of the person.
You have ethical non-monogamy and you have non-ethical non-monogamy. And I think the whole not getting tested and not telling people, and that falls into the whole non-ethical side where it's just...
Listen, I've learned a lot from you when we've discussed, because I think we've also discussed this dynamic that I feel like I'm more monogamous, and I don't think I would be able to be in a polyamorous relationship.
But you've been dating other polyamorous people over the last few months, or...
Yeah, but last, I was going to say year, maybe. But I've learned from them. Okay. And how I want to be in a monogamous relationship.
So be like meeting others just for now, just having fun, exploring yourself, exploring your wants, needs, desires, but still with the eye open for the one. It's, I think I haven't really understood like a safe and what's it called, like relationship, or I'm forgetting the word, not safe, relationship. I'm thinking of it in Spanish, which is sano. Healthy. Thank you. I was like, gosh, I couldn't remember it in English. That's what it gets for being bilingual. I was literally just chatting with Nash in Spanish, which is why. A healthy relationship, I don't think I know what it is. So that's part of the reason why I'm exploring relationships, because I feel like, almost contrary to popular belief, polyamorous relationships, especially ones that have been for a long time in this dynamic, are one of the healthiest communication styles that I've ever seen, in that the way I've seen you, because of course I'm seeing it probably in two different relationships, but both of these relationships, very communicative. I think this lifestyle forces you to be more open and honest with your communication. And at times I get called out on it by being just too blunt with my honesty, whereas I'd be speaking to someone and I just say it as it is without sugarcoating, just to get it out there that this is how I see things. And at times it's like, I don't mean to offend, but I just come across with this bluntness, and I don't mean to be cold in it either, where it's just like, but that's just how the facts lie. So, and it's something I need to work on, is how to be honest and be completely open, but it's also understanding the other person and how they may react to a certain situation. So I have to buffer my words in a way.
Well, I feel like that might be very restricting, because the part of communication is communicating as honestly as you can. If you communicate, I think we've said this before, actually, I'm sure we've discussed this before, it's the intention behind the communication, the way you say things. If the intention is not to offend, but you accidentally offend, then it's kind of like, I don't mean to offend. I'm not saying this to offend you. I'm trying to say this as honestly as I can.
What if you're someone who does that all the time?
Yeah. Well, funny thing is, I can do that with you.
Yeah.
But I find it very hard to communicate with guys that I'm dating and seeing. And we've discussed this before, which is why it's like,
I was about to bring that up now.
We should have been recording this a week ago.
Because for me, I mean, since meeting you nearly a year ago, I found you to be one of the most outgoing, genuine, honest, wearing your heart on your sleeve type of person I have ever met, and I am so grateful for you. But then you started telling me about how would it be a personality change when you're
I just don't know how I feel anxious with relationships when it comes to more, I guess, love, sex, partnership relationships compared to, I find it very easy to make friends. And very fun to make friends, and I can be very open when it comes to friendship. But it's almost like the minute I put in my head perhaps more of a label, it just, I freeze.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't, I triple check myself. I underestimate or overestimate. I overthink. I go into a real just, a anxious place. And I was discussing this. I might be like, the attachment theory, anxious attachment, where I'm anxious that, what I'm doing is pushing a person away.
Yeah.
But then when I realize that I'm probably doing that, I become avoidant, where I'm just like, okay, I won't talk to them.
but that stands for polyamorous relationships as well, because there's times where I've been in, like, with a partner, and things have moved more towards a romantic side of things. And the moment big words are attached, like girlfriend or boyfriend, I freeze. I don't know how to deal with that, because for me, the word boyfriend gives me so many connotations of things that I must do as a boyfriend. So and a weight of responsibility. When we don't use those big words, things are just fine.
Yeah.
But as soon as big words are attached for me, and I'm like, no, can't deal with that too much. And like, that's why I've said it's easier for me to identify with ethical non-monogamy than it does even with polyamory. Because within polyamory, I feel there'd be that idea of moving forward with a secondary or tertiary, relationship.
And so what, you're scared of the responsibility of having someone else's emotions or...
Yeah, I think that's it, because I find it difficult enough to, understand my own.
Yeah.
And then within, being married now as well, to deal with that, then to bring in another level onto it of... I think maybe responsibility is the wrong word, but I think for me, just the weight that goes with a word.
Okay.
And there was one partner where we used those words, boyfriend, girlfriend, and the moment we started doing, something changed in me, that I was just like, I don't know how to deal with this. What does she expect of me? What does she need of me? How can I be there for her in this boyfriend mentality? And just like...
Did you ask her? I'm wondering about this. Like, did you talk to her about those kind of thoughts that came through your head?
We talked after I had a bit of a freak out. I know I can't deal with this. I don't know what's going on, because I just couldn't understand where. And so I became this kind of anxious would it be an anxious avoidant when I'm trying to...
Well, apparently that's like disorganized when you're both.
Like subconsciously trying to force people away, not ignoring them. Avoidant, Because I mean, one thing about me is conflict is something that I would always avoid. I'm terrible when it comes to conflict, and it's down to my upbringing. Yeah. I know it is, because I've seen it. I've been in the middle of it. Middle child syndrome does exist. If there are any therapists out there that deal with polyamorous, ethical, non-monogamous middle children, please drop me a DM.
Write to me, please. I need assistance. It's interesting that you say that. I'm actually really excited about having the responsibility, for the lack of the better word. Like, I'm excited to kind of delve into these things and help, because I think my personality is, I really want to, and it might be just this whole people pleasing things, or I don't know, miracle worker, but I really enjoy helping my friends, and I really love being there for them.
Absolutely.
And being that person that they can call upon. I find that such like high praise for me, because it's like, oh, you trust me that you want me to be there on those moments. I love that feeling myself. Yeah. I feel like partnership, boyfriend, girlfriend terminology would give me that. It would have someone be vulnerable enough to want to call upon me, and me being there for them. Like, I'm excited about that word.
What about the friends that you couldn't be there for if you're in this monogamous... If you're there for that one person, and other friends, let's say, are your go-to person, and you're not available to be their go-to person anymore?
Well, it doesn't mean exclusivity in terms of that. You could, I mean, hopefully everyone's having a freak out on the same day. Like, no one, that would suck.
Mercury in retrograde.
Yeah. All of my friends calling
everything happening all at once.
Yeah, I really doubt that's going to happen. I think it's the mental capacity of being like, okay, my boyfriend at this time needs my help. But I think that it's also, I mean, what I'm learning, it's the presence of being there and helping them and letting them know that you're there to help them. But a lot of people need to do things on their own. So it's kind of being there to support them when they need it. But that's, in my opinion, not a constant need. Because some people need that time to also be alone, reflect, think about it. So, you know, maybe when they're having that reflection time, then my other friend's freaking out and I can go. Or just
and that's your distraction from having to deal with the real world for another few days.
Exactly. And then have my me time, because self-care is very important. But anyway, I'm excited about that part of responsibility. Like, I find that something I actually want.
I find that super, and it's like, it's been equally as interesting speaking to you about all these topics, because I'd be coming to you with, you know, what's going on in my world and partners I'm seeing and new dates I'm having, and you're telling me about, you know, dates you've been on. And you came out with a theory the other day when we were hanging out on Sunday about...
I had a concussion at the time.
Monogamous chemical, or what was that about?
Monogamy gene.
Monogamy gene.
Yeah.
Right, what was all that about?
Okay, so just a little background.
Monogamy gene.
I'm a biologist. So my background is in biology. I have a PhD in genetics. So, well, kind of with genetics, but... for simple.
So hold on, let me get this straight. So you're smart and sexy.
Yeah.
How are you still single?
I mean, listen, we went to the comedy show, and that was exactly what they asked me, and I went, I don't know. Exactly. I don't know. I don't know. I think I've been focusing too much attention on people that aren't worth it. That don't. Okay. That probably, not that they're not worth it. Everyone has their value. Let me take that back.
Yeah. They just don't align with your.
Probably who probably don't even see their own value. Okay. And so they push you away.
Yeah.
So I've been dealing with a lot of guys that way, that are kind of through whatever thing they're going through, to just haven't been emotionally available to connect. And I've been seeing that a lot. But that's also a reflection.
It's part of the journey as well.
Yeah, I've learned through them to
absolutely
try to be more responsive.
I mean, as I like to say, there are no mistakes, there are learning opportunities.
Yeah.
And of course, you can fuck things royally up, but if you learn from it and move on, and you know, you grow from it, then it's a win at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it.
A personal win, for sure. So yeah, that's why I'm single.
There we go. But anyway, your monogamous gene.
My monogamous gene.
We get sidetracked again.
No, it's okay. So when I heard your first episode, and I will hear more. Just have another time. I've had a concussion.
Hello.
You discussed how to you it felt. Correct me if I'm wrong, or I'm sure I get the wording wrong, because I was trying to think about this morning. Like you said evolution, or it felt natural, or like the polyamory.
Yeah, well, my theory on it is, if monogamy was the way it was to be biologically, then we would have some kind of a gene which will switch off when we meet our one, you know, that stops us from even being attracted to another member of the opposite sex.
Yeah, so,
you know, and just an off switch.
Yeah, see, my core just like enlightened when you said biology, because I was like, oh my god, this is where I can come in, because I'm a biologist.
Here we go.
So I can talk about evolution.
We got the professionals in here now. They slap me down.
Yeah. So I had to do a little research, because I'm not a biologist in this, because it's kind of like sociology, biology, neurobiology.
Yeah.
But when I was studying biology in the university, they gave us this theory of like the monogamy gene, where it was shown it's been observed it was in 1990. I think it was by Gertz, or Carter and Gertz, I think is what they're called, that they saw these mammals that exhibited monogamous traits, where they would, a male-female pair bond, would be together for a very long time and child rear year after year. And so they started coming, and a similar species, so this is called a prairie vole, a similar species called the meadow vole wouldn't exhibit monogamous traits. Even though they're very similar in species, they were exhibited different traits.
So it would be the difference between a fox and a dog, let's say.
No, it's a bull and a vole, but one is in the prairie and the other one's in the meadow.
Okay, so they're both the same species.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
or not species, but genus.
Genus, okay. Yeah. We're gonna have a biology lesson here right now.
That's why I wanted to come in.
All my secondary school biology is coming back to me going, oh yeah, I remember failing that subject.
Loved it. I loved it. So yeah, so they would, one would exhibit monogamous traits and the other one would exhibit non-monogamous traits. Or I guess I was gonna say, I'm gonna preface this because biology terminology is very different to like religious context of it or political context. So monogamy and polygamy is really just talking about mating systems. It's not talking about marriage. It's not talking about, the politics of it. It's always the mating systems in the context of reproduction. Okay. So it's always male, female.
Okay.
I believe in love in all its forms, but science needs to be very... in order to understand something, you have to ask a question, a very specific question, to be able to gather evidence. So it's very specific in terms of mating systems between male and female. So when they started observing these prairie voles, they took them into the lab. And an interesting thing that they've noticed is that they actually exhibited something called social monogamy.
Okay.
Which means that they were pair bonded for a very long time. But that doesn't mean they were sexually exclusive.
Interesting. Yeah. That is an interesting one.
Yeah.
And was that just in that, or have there been other studies on other animal groups or other genuses? Or
there have been, but voles happen to be. I did very little research, to be fair, but the things that I did see is voles, prairie voles specifically, were highly observed when it came to neurobiology of like sexual reproduction and mating systems.
Okay.
So it would be the voles, and they found some interesting things that I'll get to in a bit, but they've also shown, they've also started investigating in mice and kind of trying to see how their mating systems and other animals as well.
Yeah, well, I suppose from an evolutionary point of view, I mean, the purpose of sex is to spread your genetic material as far and wide as you can to propagate the species.
Well, it's a very male point of view of it.
Okay, well, in that way, like, but no, in terms of rearing young or having offspring is just a matter of I'm probably going to edit this part out because it got confusing.
No, the biological reason for, or as reason, biology states, or the fundamentals of it is to pass your gene to the next generation, to make sure that when you are no longer on this plane on Earth, your genes will still be present. And that's like the thing. It's reproduction, having children that will have your genes. That's the driving force, I guess, what they believe behind animals and sexual reproduction. So
in that mindset, how does monogamy, or how could, in a way, monogamy tie into the whole propagation of the species? If from a biological point of view, if it is all about passing your genes on to the next generation, wouldn't it be more efficient for mammals then across the animal kingdom to have multiple partners?
Interesting you said mammals, because it depends on the species. So mammals, and this is where it could get into more genetics, but we'll go a little bit simplified. But mammals take longer to develop. So it's actually beneficial for the child to have both parents there to support it with food and to protect it from outside enemies.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, have you seen baby humans? They're pretty useless.
Exactly.
I mean, they can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah. They're 100% useless.
How did we ever survive as a species? That's what I wonder, because
gosh, I don't know. Baby
humans, they're just so fragile. I mean, they could just get eaten with one gulp of like.
Well, that's what there's a theory behind. I mean, this is now crossing into sociology, but
it takes a village to raise it.
Exactly. If you have once you started being less nomadic and farming, and you create tribes and settlements, you trust the settlement, and the settlement will take care of each other. And so it's kind of that whole thing that you were saying. I
suppose in sociology, the tribal mentality still comes into. I mean, humans, we are still a tribal species. We'll still, seek out others who share similar mindsets to ourselves, and that's where, I mean, on the extreme scale, that's where a lot of discontent comes from, because you have like-minded groups getting together and well, I
think because if current modern society or modern human living is just, it's difficult.
It's not conducive to how we should be, I feel.
Well, because it's so easy to get everything.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking
instant
about
gratification.
Yeah, for anything, for food, everything. For shelter, like, you know, I always go back to the tribal mentality of tribe, of like in the forest making their own houses.
But just even to feel accepted. I mean, somebody puts up a picture on their Instagram and they're getting 50, 60 likes within an hour on it. Whereas just, there's no real connection there.
Yeah. Well, there's just, we can go into like the negative thing that I think about, but yeah, there isn't the connection, but the theory behind, actually there is a couple theories of why monogamy developed in the human species.
Yeah, we can only speak for humans. I've never had a conversation with a penguin, let's say.
Oh, the ones that, yeah, you were just saying that they're not monogamous.
Well, that's what I've come across in my readings, whereas everyone has this idea, and it's a common thread, penguins mate for life, whereas I know I read an article somewhere recently enough, whereas no, penguins will just mate for the time period to raise that clutch or that brood of young, and then they will go and find another partner afterwards.
That in itself is called social monogamy.
Okay.
Because they're there for the child rearing season to make sure it's...
Social monogamy, that's a new one on me, and I actually find that very, very interesting. Yeah. And it ticks a lot of the boxes for humans in my mind.
I know, when I saw that word, I was like, Karl's going to love this.
Yeah.
He's going to love it. It's cohabitating for long duration, usually for the purposes of child rearing.
Rearing a child.
Yeah. And so actually going back to these prairie voles.
Our beautiful, friendly prairie voles.
Beautiful prairie voles. They've actually seen, it was really, really interesting when they did this study and they started observing them. It was believed they were, like I said before, monogamous. And then was found, or upon observation, that they're social monogamous, which we've discussed already, where a male and a female will pair bond, and they will raise their pups for years together.
Okay.
Various litters of pups. But what scientists found was that when you looked at the genetic of the pups, between 23 to 56% of the time, which is, I know, a range, but they saw different pairs, the pups will have different genes compared to their dad. So it's shown that the female had extra pair copulation.
Oh, she was out doing the dirty on her prairie vole.
Yeah. So even though there was a preference where the female and the male would show preference for each other, they will cohabitate, they will child rear together. That's what I was saying before. It doesn't mean sexual exclusivity. That's given me a lot of food for thought, because even with myself and my relationship structure and friends who are similar, where we have a nesting partner or a long-term partner, where mine will be Nash. I have other friends and they're together for years and years. I mean, they're married, but they also see other people, but their primary partner will always come first. And there's books I've read, and more than two in the book, and it goes on about hierarchical relationships. Whereas it's very difficult for me to get my head around to have two partners on the same level, especially when it comes to having a history with one of those partners. Like when you're married for 10 years, together for 12, as opposed to someone you've had a connection with for maybe 6 months to 2 years to even compare that. And then there's the whole concept of, well, what's the chemical drive for love as opposed to the you've got a topic on that one as well. This is what just goes through my mind. I'd be sitting here, if you weren't here, I'd be Googling it right now. Well, this is the thing. It developed through this. It's gonna sound like a redundant thing now. The prairie voles. It was understood. I
love those prairie voles.
Yeah, you should.
I'm gonna go and get me one. Can I get a prairie vole as a pet?
I don't think it's legal. No, probably not. Well, they were trying. So scientists were very interested in seeing, like, what's the difference? Why is it that these meadow voles were polygamous in a way, and these prairie voles weren't, where they would show social monogamy but some type of monogamy? Like, what was the difference? And they've investigated it, and they actually saw that it was the presence of certain proteins in their brain. It highly correlated, where these prairie voles had higher levels of oxytocin and vasopressin receptors in their brain.
They are some big words like marmalade.
So oxytocin is the love drug, the love hormone.
Ooh.
It's what increases when you hug, after mating or sex, during lactation. So it's supposed to...
So it's a bonding.
Exactly.
Okay, so it triggers in your brain and you just, okay, this is a good feeling. I get this from bonding.
And it's in your reward center as well. So when you feel that love, the oxytocin, it's not understood exactly why one person may induce an oxytocin, a dose of oxytocin compared to another person, but it is understood that what creates that bond is the oxytocin.
Interesting.
So the prairie voles had higher levels of these receptors in their brain, so they were able to kind of like feel the love, literally, with their partners, and that kind of helped, along with vasopressin, help them stay in child rear.
That is
while the meadow voles didn't have that.
Okay.
They didn't have as high levels. Another interesting thing is within the prairie vole, there are males who stay, and there's males that are called wandering males. And these are the ones that contribute to that 25 to 56% kind of various genome in the litter.
Wandering hobo vole?
But they have, within their same species, lower levels of the receptors compared to the ones that stay.
Okay, but would they be seen as, in vole mentality, as social outcasts where they're just left out wandering the prairies without it?
I don't think the other voles were kind of like...
I know. I like to delve into it a bit. My imagination is so big. I'm just thinking about these poor little voles going out on their own, roughing it, thrown away from the tribe.
I don't think they're seeing it that way, though.
No, probably not.
They're probably like...
I mean, they need a higher level of consciousness to really see the world that way.
Yeah, but it has to do with the whole, like, how do genes affect behavior? So that was one of the first studies that they saw, and that they identified oxytocin as the love drug, basically hormone, love hormone.
We could open up a whole can of worms on this, whether nurture versus nature kind of a debate.
Interesting you said that as well.
Here we go.
Apparently.
See, this is why we communicate so well, because we're always on the same page.
I've researched exactly what you said.
I didn't even look at your notes, for God's sake.
I know. I
don't have time for that. I'm a busy guy.
It's very true. That's
I don't have time for friends. Wait a minute.
It was shown that in these... social monogamous pairs, or pair bonded male female, the litters that were raised in this situation had higher levels of oxytocin receptors in their brain, and so there's like apparently an epigenetic, a nurture component.
So if you're feeling these serotonin triggers from an early age, do we even age these voles from an early stage of development? And so it
child rearing during the
child rearing phase, there's the big word. And so it then becomes part of their own, like, it
social behaviors.
But it grows and adapts as they grow and adapt, as opposed to those who aren't exposed to this from a young. Oh, interesting.
So they were saying that they showed social monogamy better than those pairs, that the ones that were from a litter that didn't have that co-parenting. And so they've, I mean, it's the whole nature versus nurture that you were just mentioning. So there's a nurture component to it, as they see. Another interesting thing, if you were going to ask a question.
No, just an interesting study, if we could ever find something on it, would be the occurrences of polyamorous, ideals or ethical non-monogamy amongst families have multiple children as opposed to a single child. Because in my family, like, I've got two older siblings, two younger siblings. I'm slap bang in the middle, and like, of all my siblings, I think I'm the only one who's sort of geared this way towards a more open kind of relationship structure. Now, I have an idea that maybe one or two of my brothers could be, but we've never had that conversation. I've just had like those, when they say something, you're just like, that was an interesting comment. I'll have to circle back on that when they've had a few drinks. Yeah,
that meme where it's like when siblings look at each other after someone in the family says something, and you're just kind of like, I sense something's up. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to check these levels in the brain, because you would have to chop up the brain.
Yeah, let's not get into that. Yeah, we don't do Hannibal Lecter things here.
Yeah, let's not do that. But it could be an interesting thing, like a social to look at. I think now with polyamory probably becoming more accepted in society, we could probably dare to ask those questions and observe it. It can be difficult. I mean, even from like childhood trauma stuff, things don't actually appear until years later. So it could be, you would have to follow that subject in a clinical sense, that subject for years before you can see any.
But that would also breed their own traumas of being paranoid and being watched all the time.
Well, the simple act in science, the simple act of observing is changing their behavior. So we don't really know the truth. But yeah, it was an interesting observation. But another thing I was going to say is that actually vasopressin is seen in males, in the male prairie voles, to be related to mate guarding and breeding. Child rearing, co-parenting. So both male and female, after they mated, usually if it was with they called it a stranger, if they mated with a stranger, they would then become very aggressive to that stranger and want to only go back to their pair.
Interesting.
And the male will guard her so that no other males can come around. So that was like kind of linked to that. When they started expressing vasopressin in meadow voles, they saw the same behavior. So they were able to basically neurologically manipulate these usually non-monogamous voles, the meadow voles, into starting to show characteristics of a monogamous trait.
So, okay.
So there's a genetic component to it.
That is really interesting. I mean, and yeah, I would love to know more about the genetic component, if there is one within humans, if any. But, I mean, as you said, the evidence just isn't there, and it'd be impossible to try and quantify. Yeah,
well, it's quite difficult in humans to be able to do that, but that's why I think we do so many of these studies in the animal kingdom, because we grew with them. So there has to be the fact that you can, not only that, prairie voles, which I think they are, I'm correct in saying they're the same genus, probably different species. I'm not 100% sure if they're the same species because I didn't look at their genus species name. But they did a study in mice, and they made the mice express prairie vole vasopressin genes, and these mice started exhibiting the same social monogamous characteristics. Wow. So there could be a link. There could be something there.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. You are a wonderful book full of random knowledge. I'm so glad I invited you in today.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did the research.
Have you any other tidbits or any other mind-blowing?
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
So as was in my notes, we started talking about, are there any monogamous, like pure monogamous, including sexual exclusivity in the animal kingdom?
Okay.
And I found some.
Okay.
But I can't remember what they're called, so I have to look at my notes. Okay, so there are a couple that exhibit in the wild true monogamy / sexual exclusivity. And these animals are...
Oh, drum roll.
Imagine I was like, I don't know.
I can't find it in my list of notes.
Yes, okay, so some animals that are socially and sexually exclusive include black vultures, Eurasian beavers, coppery titi monkey, and coyotes. Okay. So these are the ones that have sexual monogamy, and they are very much a minority in the animal kingdom. In 1977, it was said that 3 to 5% of over 4,000 species, mammalian species, exhibited monogamous traits. So it's very much 3 to 5%.
Of the whole of the animal kingdom?
Of mammalians, of mammals, show monogamous tendencies or traits.
Interesting.
And another interesting thing, over 90% of bird species are considered to be monogamous. But when they look at the genetic of the eggs, it's social monogamy.
Yeah. That's the saying about penguins. We've been all lied to about the penguins.
And lobsters.
And lobsters, that was in Friends, wasn't it?
Yeah. I researched that because I always used to believe that lobsters were monogamous, but a university...
They are tasty.
Oh, they're delicious. A University of Maine claims that male lobsters can mate with as many as 10 females in a season.
Well, there you go.
They're not.
So where did Phoebe ever get it from?
I don't know. Where did Friends get it? I mean, because I'm sure...
I think it was Phoebe who started a bit. He's a lobster.
Yeah. Well, I think it was the person who wrote the show.
Well, true, yeah. Let's get on to those script writers and see what the hell they were on.
Yeah, like what the heck?
Trying to mislead us.
I know. And then one other interesting thing.
Oh, here we go.
That I found when I was doing research. The impact of global warming on sexual mating preferences.
Okay. Yeah, open up this can of worms and let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
I think it's very interesting. So albatrosses or albatross.
Albitri?
An albatross.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you get
I don't know if it would be albitri being the plural like octopi.
I don't think that's a thing.
Because albatrosses is just too many S's. It's like bus.
But like fish, because the plural fish is fish.
Yeah. And sheep is sheep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't know albatross. So the thing with the albatross, they typically reunite every year for breeding season with the same partner.
Okay.
However, if there's a consistent year after year of breeding season that they don't actually have like a productive breeding season, i.e. have a birdie, they can divorce. Where they will just kind of go on to a different partner. So
what in them is just like, okay, this is no longer genetically viable.
Yeah, this
whatever
isn't working.
triggers, and it just they split.
They split. It's been shown. It's like it's a divorce if breeding failure occurs.
And no child support, no alimony,
no child support,
no lawyers.
Nothing. Well, because breeding season failed, so you know. However, a study in 2021 found that the divorce rates in these birds are increasing, and it's primarily due to climate change forcing the birds to hunt for longer and fly further away so they don't meet up in the same place as their partner, as their previous partner. And so they're having to change their mating system because of the fact that climate change.
That is quite interesting. Yeah. And it's just how, the effect we've had on this planet is causing such a mass effect across all creatures big and small, who share this big beautiful blue marble with us.
Yeah, and even the family dynamics. We're literally tearing families apart.
Literally. As we tear the world apart, while we watch it burn and sit back and eat our popcorn. We are just
burning it all.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. And I have another note here of kind of like why primate species probably shifted towards monogamy. Because that was another question that you asked previously.
Was it? I can't remember. I ask a lot of questions.
It's okay.
Most of which are ignored by people.
No, I'm a very curious person, so I find these really funny or really interesting. I was reading a paper, and there's actually two theories that they came up with why primate species, of which we are evolved from, went from, as you know, bonobos just, have sex with each other whenever there's conflict to chill each other out because of the oxytocin.
There you go. Gotta love that oxytocin.
Gotta love that oxytocin. Add the tocin.
Yeah, of course. The tocin is important. Disclaimer, we don't condone the use of drugs in this podcast.
No, not at all. So one theory is, which I thought it was really funny. Apparently, as society started growing larger, the prevalence of STDs were on the rise.
Amongst humans, as humans as the population grew,
STD, the prevalence or the occurrence of STDs grew as well.
Okay.
So there's a theory that says monogamy happened to reduce the rates of STD. But that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't really, but it's an interesting theory. I'll give it that. But in practice, when you just think it's like, nah.
They actually said in the article, which I thought it was funny, because they came with that theory and then someone just was like, nah. They said, actually, it makes more sense that monogamy happened to preserve wealth within a family.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially within, dynasties and, the whole, back in the day with the whole inbreeding that would have happened,
There's no, what do you mean by inbreeding?
What?
What do you mean by inbreeding?
Amongst the nobility.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so to retain their slice of the pie.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered quite a lot here. From what have we covered so far?
The theory behind, well, I guess just monogamy in the animal kingdom. That it occurs but it doesn't mean it's sexual exclusivity. Okay. It was called partner preference, which I feel like is very similar to polyamory dynamic in that you have that pair bond.
Well, even in terms of, as you said, social monogamy, but it's a different sprinkling put on it where we would have an air of social monogamy. If there are children to be reared, of course they come first and foremost. I mean, but otherwise,
but you think you're polyamory, but you're really social monogamy.
Oh, this is going to have me questioning my whole existence. Let's just put it there. I identify as ethically non-monogamous.
Right. I'm monogamous, not socially monogamy.
Well, this has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came along. I'm glad you cleared up some of the big questions that I posed to you on a random Sunday when we're sitting on your terrace eating tapas, going, "Hey, Brie, do you ever wonder about voles?"
Yeah, I do all the time. I love them. They're awesome.
Okay. We will leave it at that. We have, we've covered a lot in this podcast, looking at monogamy versus what have we looked at?
Monogamy, social monogamy, the dynamics of the animal kingdom, the benefits of monogamy, but not really, because it's social monogamy. But just that every life form kind of has their way of doing things. And
I like it.
Yeah, it is natural, and I think both sides are natural. Both have their own reasons for being, so it's kind of be curious about the world, I guess.
Be curious, be yourselves, and remember, love in itself is always a journey. We'll leave it at that for this episode. Thank you for listening, and if you'd like to be a guest on a podcast coming up, Brie had a good time, email us at PolyAmAreWe@gmail.com, or check us out on TikTok, on Instagram. Where else are we? YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Just chilling.
Just chilling.